I'm inside a bomb. It has a capacitor, relay, detonator, double pull, double throw.
Double pull, double throw. Double pull, double throw. Double pull, double throw.
Tell me what you see.
Tell me what you see. Double pull, double throw.
Testing 1, 2. Testing.
In the dark, where the shadows play, the beat drops heavy like night turns to day.
Testing 1, 2.
Feel the bass pulse through the crowded space. Lose yourself in the rhythm, find your place. Euphoria's calling, bring the fire.
Testing 1, 2. All right. Testing 1, 2. Get the audio right. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Here you have a toroidal ferrite ring. This Let's just call it that for now. It could also be a hollow tube filled with ferrite gas or any number of toroidal ring-shaped core materials. And you have a double pole switch for the bottom coil down here, and you have a double pole switching for the top coil. The reason you need double pole switching is because without double pole switching, the flyback will cancel. So let's go to this image here where start with the top coil. You'll notice the switches are closed. And the top coil gets energized like so. Through the switch. And back to negative. And you see there that the coil is energized like that. When positive flows this way, out this way, because this is counterclockwise coil and not clockwise, you will have a south instead of a north on this side. And you'll have the north on the other side. So the south field, well, let's start with the north field. From this coil, the north field is induced in the coil, transmitted to the core material, out this way, following the red arrows. And wirelessly, the north field transmits to the bottom coil when the bottom coil is inactive, and it acts as a stator pickup to send the north back to the plus terminal of the battery. And on the other side, with the south field, transmits to the bottom coil wirelessly to go into the negative terminal of the battery. So the north field transmits from the top coil to the bottom coil, out this way from the bottom coil to the battery's terminal plus to meet up with the south. South. Oh, there's the south. You can see it connecting. And like that, when you induce power to the top coil, you transmit wireless to the bottom coil, and that's how the bottom coil transmits it back to the battery. And that's when the top coil is induced. The relays are closed. The bottom coil is not induced, inactive. So it's acting like a stator at this moment. And then the switches positions from the top coil being induced to the bottom coil now getting induced. Well, here first, before we go there, let's open up the switches on the top coil, all while the bottom coil is still inactive. And in this stage of the circuit, the top coil flies back. So previously you sent the plus over here, and the minus, you sent the minus to the other side. Hold on a second. Okay, there it is. Sorry. Previously, you sent the plus from the battery to the coil on this side, giving a plus here. And you sent the minus to the other side of the coil, giving a minus here. And then the coil flies back in inverted polarity with a minus instead of a plus, and a plus instead of a minus. Pay attention to that plus and minus that I just circled. So that plus and minus now flies back out the coil, back to the plus terminal of the battery. And it meets up with the minus like so. Minus flyback. Effectively sending the flyback from the top coil back to the battery after it's been induced. Keeping in mind the switches are open. It's flying back. Now we go to the next stage where the bottom coil instead of the top, now the bottom coil is being induced. Double pole switching closes the two switches. You send plus from the battery to this part of the coil here. Okay? To meet up with the negative of the battery. Okay? Effectively inducing the bottom coil, all while the top coil is inactive now. We're switching the roles between the two coils. Now the top coil is the stator instead of the bottom. And the top coil is receiving a north and south field wirelessly through the core, the toroidal ring core. And your north will go up this way to meet the coil here. And the south is on the other end, meeting right here, south and north. So the bottom coil transmits north to the top wireless and south to the top coil wirelessly. And while the bottom coil is receiving plus here and minus here from the battery, because it's again counterclockwise, this side will be a south field and this side will be a north. If it were clockwise, this would be the north and this would be the south. Why? Because when you send plus to minus that way on a clockwise coil, the north is on this side. But this is counterclockwise, so the north is here. I already have that indicated here. So you're energizing the bottom coil to send a north here and a south here. That north causes potential in this direction in the core, and south this way. So clockwise spin. You can see the arrows on the core in red and blue. So while the bottom coil is being induced, it's creating centrifugal rotation clockwise. Same thing for the top coil when it's induced. It's creating clockwise potential in the core. So whatever induction that the bottom coil is producing to create centrifugal rotation and clockwise motion, whatever potential that's not used will be transmitted wirelessly to the stator coil, the inactive coil, which then becomes a pickup coil because it's not being powered. It's now a receiver. So whatever power that the induction was applied to the bottom coil for centrifugal rotation, whatever power that was not used is going to get transmitted to the top coil via wireless EMF. And then, of course, the left side you have a north wireless, and the right side you have a south. So the wireless EMF gets picked up by the top coil and goes out the diode here into the plus of the battery, shown in the red arrows, to meet up with the negative wireless EMF on the other side, shown in blue arrows. And these two diodes are there to make sure that the stator coil up top dumps into the battery and doesn't come back into the coil. So the battery is not able to feed the top coil in this operation until the two switches here are closed. There's no feeding the top coil with power. It's just a stator and the diodes that enable it to rectify the transmission back to the battery. So that's the next stage. And then the final, hold on a second. Where was I here? Right, the bottom coil was induced. And then the final stage, the bottom coil now flies back. The two switches open. Both coils are inactive. Bottom coil was just previously induced before the switches opened. And now, okay, so let me confirm here with you that when it was induced, it got plus came over here from the battery, and minus from the battery came this way into the coil. So your minus was here and your plus was here. That was when it was powered from the battery. And then when the switch is open, the flyback occurs in inverted polarity. You have a plus now instead of a minus, and a minus here instead of a plus. So looking at the plus and minus at the bottom there, circled in orange, is the flyback polarity. And you can clearly see with the switches open, it enables the flyback to go only one path, and that's right here, through the diode into the battery to meet up with the negative flyback. Sorry, one second. Through the diode into the battery to meet up with the negative flyback right here. And that's that. That's the flyback going back to the battery. So effectively what you have here is a very efficient circuit. These coils are asynchronously pulsed. Let's say the bottom is A and the top is B. You would be pulsing like this, A, B, A, B, A, B, back and forth. And when A is energized, B is not. B becomes a stator, picking up the wireless transmission of A. And when B is energized, A is not, and A becomes a stator, picking up the wireless transmission of B. So, the energizing of A and B induces the centrifugal rotation in the core. Whatever energy that was applied to the rotational force that was not used by the coil gets recycled back to the battery via its opposing stator coil. So the two coils switch positions from being an induction coil to a stator coil. The bottom coil is an inducting coil in one portion. That would be here. No, wait. Here it's the bottom coil is an induction coil, and the top coil is a stator coil. Here, and here the bottom coil is a stator coil, and the top coil is now the induction coil because the switches are closed, connecting it to the battery source that's being induced. Because the switches are open, disconnecting it from source it's disconnecting it from the source power. It's from the source being able to power the bottom coil, but it's not disconnected from source in the opposite direction of dumping to source. So the circuit is set up in where both coils are connected to source in two ways. The bottom coil, for instance, and the top coil are connected to source in the same way. The bottom coil is connected to source via the double pole relays for induction purposes, for being energized. The bottom coil is also connected to source via the source for draining purposes, for draining into the source. When the bottom coil relays, double pole relays are closed, the bottom coil is being energized. Because they're counterclockwise wound, you will notice the north is here. During the induction phase, because of where the north ends up, it's unable to, channel this way because it's on the wrong side of the coil. If the north, this is the stator, this is the wireless north from the top coil that you're seeing here. Okay. And this is the wireless north and south from the bottom transmission, bottom coil transmission. What I'm saying is, if you're worried about the bottom coil when it's being induced in this position, if you're worried about this north coming out this way through this diode back to source, well, it won't happen because it has to be on this side of the coil to do that. And because you have a south here, this diode effectively blocks the negative. The south is your negative. So these two diodes here are not for the bottom coil during its induction phase. They're there for the flyback phase, to take the flyback. When the polarity flips, then they work, because the plus will be here, or the north, whatever you want to call it. And the minus will be on the other side. And when the plus is there, it works to go through this bias correctly for this diode. Oops. Yeah, so when the plus is there, it's correctly biased for this diode to meet up the plus with the minus through this diode. Plus through the diode. Plus can go through that diode and meet the negative side. Okay, so that's the flyback. So these diodes are not there for the induction phase. They're there for the flyback phase of the bottom coil. So when this coil is being induced with a north and south, as you see here, this would be a positive, and that would be a negative. So because the positive is on this side of the coil, it's not gonna, it's going to stay on that side of the coil during the energizing portion of the pulse. So as long as the switches are closed, this is a positive. Until the switch is open, that stays a positive. So the only path for this positive to go is up here, and to get picked up by the top coil, the stator, acting as a stator in this moment. And this is where it can get out back to the battery. And meet up with the negative on the other side, like so. So if you're looking at these two diodes as return for the induction phase of the bottom coil, they're not going to do that, because the north would have to be on this side, but it's not. It's on this side. North is positive. So the positive is here during induction. Okay, and let me keep going a little bit here. So that's that, and then you have, now the top coil gets induced again. Switch is closed. Bottom coil is no longer being induced. Switches are open. So that makes the bottom coil a stator coil. And your north, shown in red arrows, will channel wirelessly to the bottom coil here. Bottom coil will pick it up and send it out this way, back to the battery, to meet up with the south right here. Okay, plus and minus, north and south. Here's your plus on the battery, and here's your minus. And when the top coil is energized, again, if you think these diodes are going to take that induction and send it back to the battery. Well, let's look at this. Can a north field, induced field, a positive signal, can it get through this diode down here? The answer to that would be no, because the diode is not biased correctly. And how do you know that north is a positive? Because the positive here is here, positive. And this is counterclockwise coil, so it produces a north here. If it were clockwise, it would produce a south instead of a north. That covers this diode for the induction phase. That diode is not there for the induction phase. It's there for the flyback phase. This diode only is biased only for a negative signal. On the flyback negative, that is. So it only worked for the flyback negative, but in the induction, when this coil is being induced and not flying back, it's receiving a negative at this point from the battery. And that negative cannot go through here because it's not biased properly. This negative would have to go all the way to the other side of this coil to get to here. Then it can go, pass through this diode, bias, whatever. In reality, the positive goes through the diode this way to meet the negative. But you can phrase it either way. And that will happen. This negative will reach over to the other side of the coil when the coil's flying back and the switches are open on the top coil, which is right here. Sorry, right here. Right there. So the switches are open. And now the negative made it to the other side of the coil for the flyback process. The positive's here. And the flyback can get out this way. Back to the battery. Cut through the battery to meet the negative on the other side of the flyback signal. All right, that's probably confusing to some and probably makes perfect sense to others. Nonetheless, I'm making this video for those who may want to replicate this. If you do replicate it, it will make a toroidal rotational flux field in the core going clockwise, as you see the arrows there. Why does it do that? Well, because, let me go to this image. When the bottom switches are closed, you're going to have a north here, a south here. That's going to induce clockwise rotation from the bottom coil. And then the next pulse happens at the top coil pulses to continue that induction with the north here and the south here, which continues the clockwise induction. You can see how that would work. So they're stagger pulsed. The bottom induces it this way. Then the top induces it this way. And they keep switching back and forth to keep that induction flow from bottom to top, back and forth. First you'd be pulsing here, here, then you pulse here, then you pulse here, then you pulse here. and it repeats. If you can visualize that, you'll see what I'm talking about. So if you were to energize both of these at the same time, that would also work. But for some reason, I feel like it'd be more effective at creating spin if you stagger pulse them instead of at the same time. I don't know why I think that, but it's hard to explain. But in the mind's eye, it's more effective to pulse one kind of like then the other, you know, back and forth. If you did them together at the same time, you know, you're hitting the whole 360 at once. I say it's better to hit 180 of the circle with rotation and then the other 180. And go back and forth between the two 180 portions, the two halves of the circle. Just for whatever reason, I think that's more effective. Plus, doing it that way enables you to recycle a lot of the energy that would have been lost in the induction portion. It enables you to make one coil a stator while the other one is a inductor, and then switch positions and make the other coil a stator and the other one an inductor. In that way, by switching like 180, 180, that's what it enables you to do. And by doing that, making one a stator when it's inactive, and then the other one a stator when that one's inactive, but the opposite one is active. So when the one that's not active, the other one is active. And the active one can induce the rotational force, and whatever energy that's not used in that induction for rotational force can be absorbed by the opposite coil that's acting as a stator during its inactive point when it's not being induced. All right, I gotta cut this off because I've said everything I could say here. I mean, I'm at a point where I'm just repeating myself. It would have to be, you know, in a way where questions are asked at this point, you know, for me to specify more clearly. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Going back to the show.
Son of a bitch.
Where the hell is Nest? Get Nest in here! It's on a timer.
All right, hey, the bomb's on a timer, all right?
Ken. Where the hell are they? Ken, tell me Nest is here.
Affirmative. We've cleared 43rd. They'll be there in 4 minutes.
They're not gonna make it. They're not gonna make it.
Okay. You're gonna have to do this. Do you understand? Now take a look at this and tell me what you see. Take a look at this and tell me what you see.
An SS-18 primary with a plutonium core. Bomb inside a bomb. It has a capacitor relay detonator, double pull, double throw.
Double pull, double throw. Double pull, double throw. Double pull, double throw.
Okay.
repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source.
Come on. Do it. Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Do it.
Who is doing it?
Do it.
Do it.
All of it.
Do it.
Come on. Do it now.